Welcome to another round of Coffee and Donuts where I answer your questions about the police hiring process and the police career in general. I'm Frank. If you don't know who I am, I'm a former federal law enforcement officer and now a full time law enforcement instructor. Let's jump right in. I got three good questions and we'll get started. Let's discuss. First question: how significant is the hurdle for backing out of the USMC delayed entry program about 3 years ago? That's not necessarily a major hurdle unless you got some type of DD 214 or discharge paperwork, because you're not even, unless you signed on the dotted line and you actually shipped off to where you were actually a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, you're not going to have a discharge document. If you do have a discharge document, you'll have to disclose that. Hey, I initially was going to enlist. However, some things changed. I decided that I wasn't the right time or right opportunity. And ultimately, I wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement, not necessarily the military. And that's how I would articulate that. But ultimately, from a legality standpoint, you need to check to make sure that you were never a member of the armed service. And if legally you weren't, then you won't even have to technically disclose that. And if it comes up, once again, you would just articulate it the same way that I just showed you, where you said, hey, I was originally going to enlist. I was part of the delayed entry program. At that point in time, I decided it wasn't in the best interest for me, or there was a situation that came up, and ultimately I wanted to pursue law enforcement rather than military. And that's the way I would go with it. This one doesn't have to be a hurdle, uh, but you can make it a really big one, right? Because one of the biggest things that flags candidates, not necessarily disqualifies them, but flags a candidate, is whether or not they were in the military, and then what type of discharge, or were they ever reprimanded or disciplined in the military. So NJP, Captain's Mass, dishonorable discharge, you're ineligible at that point in time. Things along those lines. So verify, make sure legally you were never considered a member of the armed forces, and then from there you should be good to go. But once again, make sure you get the correct legal guidance to cover that one. Next question: I failed my psychological evaluation to my dream department. Sorry to hear that. They are giving me a chance to appeal it and retake it in 5 months. Do you recommend appealing it? What are your thoughts on appeals? I am currently applying at other departments. To answer the last part of this, I usually don't recommend an appeal. This one's a bit convoluted, so you failed it. They're giving you a chance to appeal and retake it in 5 months. Most departments allow you to reapply as a new candidate again after a year if you fail the psychological. Some departments are different. Some it's 6 months, some it's a year. Some they don't let you reapply ever if you fail the psych. So it's going to depend on this department. If this department allows you to retake after a year, and how much time it takes your appeal to go in, and then your appeal passes, and then 5 months after that date, are you past a year? What is it better to go the appeal route? I would say no, because an appeal route means that you're making more work for them and you're challenging their decision. Might leave a negative connotation of you in their mind. But ultimately, here's my suggestion: if a department tells you no, if you, especially if it's an in-house psychologist, then it's really hard. If it's a third-party psychologist, you got a better shot. Um, but yeah, I don't ever recommend an appeal. I say, hey, you know what? If that's a dream agency, um, maybe right now is not the right time for them. Go out, get experience, work with another department. It's only going to make you a better law enforcement officer to get different perspectives. Go out, work with a different department, get some experience, and then later on down the line, if you still want to work for them, who knows, you might love that other agency. But if you still want to work for them, you can always lateral to them later on. And I was doing the research the other day, and we don't quote me on this, but it's like the average officer works at three different departments before retirement, right? Because maybe they lateral to another department for better benefits, better pay, they relocate, whatever the reason is. That's usually the the research that I'm finding about three departments, average of three departments for officers to make it to retirement. So keep that in mind. All right. Next question here. I'm going through the process with a big agency in my area. I have a very clean criminal record, but I've been fired 3 times within the last 10 years. I've had kind of a spotty employment history since 2020, lost my job in healthcare due to COVID. As a result, I've been on some county financial support systems, and the financial picture isn't great. Mortgage forbearance, unpaid line of credit from my bank that I use to cover pretty much living expenses, car repossession. I know things will come up, and I really love to know what, if anything, I can do to soften the blow. Okay, so first and foremost, it's going to come down to time, right? So, how much time are you from all this? Second, it's going to come down to, have you corrected these? Or are you in the process of correcting? If you haven't corrected any of this, or you're not even remotely trying to correct any of this, you're not able to move forward. Your background clearance will not check out. Financial responsibility is a big one for security clearance, even just a public trust clearance for law enforcement officers. That's a critical element, and you can't articulate it if they say, "Hey, what are you doing about all this?" "Oh, nothing." No, you're done right there at that. If that's your answer, you need to start making some changes and get these things fixed. If they're already fixed, well, then how much time and distance have you had from? If you say, "Hey, this my car repossession was last year, but since that year you haven't missed any payments, you're financially stable, you've gotten to the point to where you can articulate, hey, yeah, it was a rough couple years. It took me a couple years to get everything together. I finally got it all together. Now all my payments are all caught up. Financially, I'm good. My credit score is climbing back up." That looks really good. That's the best possible outcome for that scenario I just gave. If it's not, and you're still, "Oh, I'm still taking care of these. Some of these are being processed now, and I'm paying them off. Others are disputed because they're not accurate, or everything currently is being resolved. My credit score is climbing back up. I'm still making payments on this." That sounds fine too, but that sounds better if they're 3 years ago, right? If it's, hey, 2022, it's because it's 2025 now, right? If that was back a few years ago, say in 2022, like I was mentioning, and you come back and you say, "Hey, yep, this was approximately 3 years ago or more," and you're going to articulate, "Hey, I've distanced myself from this, better credit score, 3 years of positive financial histories, making payments on time." Yeah, that looks even better, right? That looks even better. So it just depends on where you're at with this. I would need to know more. So maybe something, if you're running into a situation like this, you or anyone else, this is one of the ones where you jump on a coaching call with any of my instructors, right? You run them through this, see what they say. Do you need more time? Do they think they're going to need more time? Most of the time, it's just learning to articulate this properly while still at the same time improving your situation. But that's ultimately what you're looking for. So, all right, I burned through these ones pretty quick. We have a lot of things coming down the pipeline, so we'll keep feeding that out to you. I hope you enjoyed this. Once again, this is Coffee and Donuts, where I answer your questions in full detail. Down below, you will see our website, armaganct.com, ARMOGANCT.com. And there you can jump on, see additional trainings we have for you, free trainings, a bunch of different things, and see any new events we have coming out as well to assist with your police career, hiring process, or whatever you have going on. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.